For those of you already signed on who've been listening to me just kind of kill time here, my name is Nancy Rojas Hill. I am the Associate Director of Admissions at Southwestern Law School. So I work in the admissions office. I do things like review files, help people with questions about entering student scholarships as distinct from other types of financial aid, which I'm going to defer to our financial aid representative on. And I work in a team of 4 other people. And so if you are interested in reaching out to us after the webinar, our contact information is on our swlaw.edu website. And we'd love to hear from you. Although we're not taking on-campus visitors at this time, we have launched an admissions office hours feature, virtual office hours, 2 hours a week. And on our events calendar, you can see what those are. So we'll get started with the presentation now. I have with me Suzanne Kunz. She is the Associate Director of Financial Aid at Southwestern Law School. She's been in that role since 2015, and she's been a really great asset for our students, helping them understand and navigate the really murky waters of financing your legal education. It can be a really overwhelming topic that people want to avoid, but she is a very warm and welcoming person. And so I think that really helps put people at ease, our students and prospective students, so they can go and ask those questions and get everything squared away so that they're ready to be successful after they graduate. So Suzanne, would you like to say a few words?
Absolutely. Welcome to our webinar. We've been experiencing some fun times trying to get used to this whole remote thing. This is such a wonderful way to reach out to each one of you. But I want to let you know that at any time, you are always welcome to reach out directly to us. We are pretty much in the office as usual from 9 to 6, albeit virtually from my dining room. But your phone calls to our office from the lines on the website reach me directly. Not this moment because I turned my phone off, but and we are more than happy to answer at any time. I do take my communications with students very seriously, and I don't shut myself down at the end of the evening until everybody has at least gotten something from me, even if it is just to say, hey, talk to you in the morning. So we're going to start our presentation now. I'm going to turn off my, oh.
Sorry, Suzanne, before you get started, just to orient everyone to using the features of Zoom, you should be able to, if you're on a computer, use a Q&A function. That is where we will be fielding questions as opposed to the chat. So please send your Q&A questions to the Q&A. The chat will not be monitored as readily for those questions. So that is how we will interact with you. And we will be taking a couple question breaks throughout, and then of course at the end. So Suzanne, take it away.
Woo! Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna take my video off and we'll just work with the presentation itself. So financing your law school, we're going to talk about a number of different ways and things that you can do. Go ahead and proceed with the presentation. So today's discussion, we're going to talk about how you prepare for law school, what you can do to make sure that you have the easiest way of getting through all this stuff, but we will help you out as much as possible as well. How do you apply for aid? We're going to talk about just the different things that you can do to make that easy. I'm going to show you the websites that you need to access. And then we're going to talk about the cost of attendance. That's a phrase you're going to see us throw around a lot. What cost of attendance means is how much does it actually cost to go to law school? Not just tuition and books, but also living expenses, transportation, personal items, things like that. We're going to talk about how to pay back the loans, because I know a lot of you are very concerned about that. But again, we are here for you, and it's not nearly as bad as you think it's going to be. And last of all, we're going to talk about what the future of financial aid looks like. I know things are up in the air right now, but not so much that we can't give you some idea of what to expect. So how do I prepare financially for law school? The first thing that you want to do is start saving right away. Two reasons. Number one, you'll have more money available to you when you start law school, but also if you start in that saving mode now, you're going to be much more comfortable with the kind of budgeting that you have to do while in school. So that's a good thing to do. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, it didn't transfer very well. So when there's a lot of things that you can do to get yourself prepared. First of all, clean up your credit. One of the things that I found was just previous to this one, that mint icon that I just showed you, that is a way to track your spending on your phone that I find to be very helpful. For those of you who have already started using those kinds of apps on your phone, I use the Mint program and it's wonderful. I can take a look at everything from my mortgage to my credit cards. It'll tell me when something has hit a credit card. I've actually been able to see where someone tried to buy a computer on my credit card as they were purchasing the computer, and I was able to stop the charge very quickly. And then one thing that I practiced for many years, because I had several different life cycles in my life, I ask myself 3 questions before I purchase something, especially if something's over $100. And that's, first of all, do I really want it? Well, of course I do. The second thing is, do I really need it? That usually is a no. And then, can I afford that? And that question is going to get you if you're honest with yourself, because if you're borrowing all the funds that you need to go to law school, you pretty much cannot afford to be silly with your spending, and you need to be as responsible as possible. So practice your budgeting now. That really will make a big difference. Applying for federal aid. I have a picture here of the most current federal website. This is the newest one. It's only been around for about a month. And this is where the federal government has taken all of the student websites and merged them into one. So it's at studentaid.gov. It's fairly user-friendly. It's not as easy as it was at one point, but it is pretty good. Notice that many of you are familiar with the term FAFSA, or some people call it FAFSA. It's actually FAFSA. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Student Aid. The word free is very important here. If you're hiring someone to take care of this for you, stop that, okay? There's no reason to hire anyone to take care of this. It is a 10-minute application. It is so simple to take care of, especially if you file taxes in 2018. So definitely set up your FAFSA all by yourself. Now, that's not to say that you can't email me and I can help you through it. I'm more than happy to help you through it. And we can do it on a Zoom session at any time. The FAFSA is something that is fairly easy to do, but a couple things that would really help you out. And number one is have your social security card with you so that you do not transpose numbers on your social security number. The one mistake I cannot correct on a FAFSA is an incorrect social security number. So make sure that that's correct. Second of all, have your 2018 taxes with you when you do your your FAFSA, because those 2018 taxes, when you attempt to link your tax return with the FAFSA, it has to be exactly as the information appears on your tax return. Exactly. Transpositions and spelling errors, exactly as it appears on that income tax return. So make sure that you take care of that. Have those in front of you. Our school code is G01295. It's also on our Southwestern Law website. So, or you can even email me at any time. I've got that embedded in my brain. Things to remember when you're applying for your financial aid: set aside some uninterrupted time to complete the application. So that you don't have to start and stop and start and stop. There is no need to put parental information on your FAFSA. Parents are no longer part of the entire process. You'll be using 2018's income tax information, not this year's or last year's, but 2018. It doesn't matter what that tax information is. In grad school, there is very, very little need-based aid. So don't sweat it. Be as absolutely honest as you can possibly be on the FAFSA. You do not need your parents' information on the FAFSA. None. There is a pop-up that says, hey, if you're going to law school, you might want to put your parents' information on the FAFSA. That is not true. Do not do it. It's a waste of your time, and it's a waste of your parents' time, and it creates way too much stress between students and parents. Be careful on that Social Security number. You don't want to mess that one up. Household members may or may not agree with your income tax return. So sometimes people will have 4 people on their income tax return because they're married with 2 children, but they're also supporting grandma. So they might have 5 household members. If you can honestly say that you are supporting someone with more than 50% of what they need, they're a household member. As long as, even if they don't live with you, they're a household member. Deadlines vary from school to school, but at Southwestern Law, we do not have hard deadlines. We just ask that you do it as soon as you can. The longer you take to get the FAFSA in, the longer it's going to take me to get you a financial aid offer. So do take care of that soon. Different kinds of aid at Southwestern. We're going to talk about that after taking a short break. So Nancy, if we have any questions, we can break for those questions real quick.
Sure. So let me just come back on my video so I can see. We do have a few questions for the Social Security number. What can happen if you get that Social Security number wrong? Like, what are the negative outcomes of doing something like that?
You start over.
Okay.
It's that simple. I've tried going through a correction process that takes weeks. It's better to go back to the FAFSA website or go to the student aid website, whichever, both will take you there, and start over completely. That's the best way to do it.
There is another question. Should I wait to be admitted before filling out my FAFSA and having it submitted to Southwestern?
No, you can put up to 6 schools on that FAFSA application. Just make sure you can actually put up to 10, but make sure that we're in the top 6 if you're serious about Southwestern, because that way I can actually see the FAFSA. And if there's something wrong with it, we can fix it before it becomes a problem.
Okay, great. And then just to be clear, foreign students are not eligible for aid through using the FAFSA, correct?
A foreign student who has a green card is eligible for federal aid.
Oh.
A foreign student without a green card, there are so very few exceptions to that, it's almost non-existent. So you pretty much have to have that fabulous green card to be accepted for federal aid if you're not a citizen.
Great. Then we have a question. I'm listed as a dependent under my mom on 2018 taxes, but I also filed my own taxes. How does that work? What would I submit?
Okay, mom's income tax return is irrelevant. The fact that she claimed you as a dependent is completely normal. As long as you also didn't claim yourself as an exemption, you're fine on your tax return. So your tax return, where your name is on the top of the form, not your mom's, that's the tax return you want to link to the FAFSA. It probably shows a very much different income level than mom's. So moms, don't even look at mom's. It's not necessary.
Okay, great. We have a question. What if you did not enter Southwestern's GL code on your FAFSA when you initially filled it out? How do you get Southwestern the FAFSA information?
Easy peasy. You go back to the FAFSA website, click on Make Corrections on the FAFSA, and then just add our code. It's a very easy correction.
Okay, great. We have another question. What if you're a US citizen with a Social Security number, but you currently live outside the US and you completed education and work in Canada or a foreign country, I suppose?
Well, that would be up to the admissions office if they accept that education. That's not something financial aid is concerned about. But if you're a US citizen attending a US federally approved school such as Southwestern, you can receive aid. It doesn't matter where you are. You will be here when you come to school anyway. So no, US citizen, doesn't matter where you are.
Okay, great. And on the admissions note, just since it came up, if you have a foreign degree, if your degree is from a school outside the US, it just needs to be the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree. And if you have questions about that, you can contact admissions for more information. We also have a question. I am admitted and did the FAFSA in January. Congratulations, by the way. How soon will I hear back about this kind of aid?
I'd be surprised if you didn't. Shoot me an email at the end of the program, sometime today, anytime today, and I will forward it to the director, and we'll see where your financial aid offer is. You would have received an email to your Southwestern email address telling you what to do to find your award letter, but I can follow up on that. That's not a problem. You'll get my email address at the end of my presentation.
Yeah, for those of you who are admitted, you should have received instructions on how to access your Entering Student portal, which provides you access to your Southwestern email address that Suzanne just mentioned, and is also where you can log in to view that financial aid offer letter. So if you are not aware of that, don't think you got the email, just contact admissions as well, and we can make sure you have all the information that you need. Many times we have problems with emails going to spam, so definitely always check your spam. We have a question about being a DACA student. So can you address DACA, FAFSA, and options for them?
California has the Dreamer Act, so a lot of our students who are DACA students did receive some aid while they were in undergrad, but that was a California aid. Federal government still is not offering any aid to DACA students, so the FAFSA is not necessary for a DACA student at this time. If those rules change, then believe me, that's fine. It would be a great idea for you to identify yourself as a DACA student to me in an email, because every once in a while we'll have something coming up that would be for our students who don't qualify for federal aid. And it's nice to know who I should contact the first. So at this time, there is no federal aid. Most of our DACA students go through private loans, and we're happy to certify those private loans. That typically takes a cosigner. But at this time, federal aid is not available.
Great. Thank you for addressing that one. I think we're almost ready to move on from this, but let me just address, someone asked if they get a copy of the recording. So we will be sending out a follow-up email to everyone who has attended today's webinar, and that will contain information on how to view this again. So definitely look for that within a few days after this webinar concluding. And then we have a question specifically about VA benefits that I will table for now, but we'll make sure to respond to you off the webinar, unless there are other people out there that are really interested in this. Please let me know. Someone's asking about the kinds of aid, so we're about to get into that, I believe. So just stay tuned. And then someone's asking about the limit on how much aid through FAFSA that they can receive. So I think loan limits. I think you might be addressing that in the different kinds of aid section coming up.
Yes.
And then if you want to work on campus, are you required to apply for FAFSA? This will be the last question for right now.
Federal work study is a federally funded program. So yes, a FAFSA would be required. So we'll go on to different kinds of aid, and we'll move from there. So moving back to our presentation, the different kinds of aid that are available. And again, I apologize for my fabulous animations, which work fabulously on my computer, but we had to switch to a Mac at the end of just prior to doing this presentation. So you're seeing a lot of my animations come up at very odd times. Please bear with me. I will try to get to each one of my points. So the first kind of aid that you cannot receive in law school or in any kind of grad school are government grants. Government grants are not available. And the reason for that is once you've got your bachelor's degree, the federal government says, and scene, we're done. The kinds of aid that are available in grad school, first of all, you've got your scholarships. And as we talked about earlier, those are governed for our incoming students specifically and exclusively by the admissions office. So Nancy can point you in the direction to one of her colleagues in the admissions office to talk to you about those scholarships. They're primarily merit-based. Now, one thing about Southwestern that's different than most schools, and I've sat on panels with a lot of the other schools in the area, and that is our scholarships. We do have incoming scholarships for our incoming students, but we also have merit-based scholarships that are based on your performance during the time that you're here. So we do have students who are not awarded scholarships when they come to Southwestern because their GPA from undergrad or maybe their LSAT score is not all that they would like it to be. But because they are such phenomenal students, they do very well in law school, and scholarships are then awarded in their second, third, or if they're part-time in a fourth year. So scholarships are, for the most part, institutional based. I do see some external scholarships out there, but I'd say 90% of the scholarships that our students receive come directly from Southwestern and our donors and alumni. Second kind of aid that you can get, federal work study. Talked about that just a moment ago. Federal work study in Southwestern Law School is pretty much me. Yay, I love federal work study. So whether or not you say you are or are not interested in federal work study on your FAFSA, don't worry about it. An email to me can fix that. So I do have students who decide fairly into the school year, hey, I'd really like to do the federal work study. Federal work study is funded by the federal government. Therefore, you must have a FAFSA on record. So if you're even considering that, it's something that you'll want to do. First year students don't do a heck of a lot of federal work study. You need to concentrate on doing as best you can in law school. But certainly our second and most definitely our third year students do a lot of federal work study. This is money that you earn like a paycheck. It does not have to be paid back. It is yours to do with as you please. Third kind of aid that I see students get, of course, are the federal loans. And again, I'm your gal if you have questions about federal loans. There are two kinds of federal loans. I'll get into that in just a moment. And the fourth kind of aid that I see some students use, though I don't recommend this, are private loans. Sometimes people are enticed with a very low interest rate on the private loans, but right now the federal loans have so many more advantages. I would not even consider going for a private loan if I were going back to school right now. But if you don't qualify for the federal loans, you really don't have much of a choice. So financial aid offer letter. You can expect that sometime this spring, as soon as I have your FAFSA. Typically, I've seen the director turn around a FAFSA in an hour. I've seen it take longer if there's a whole bunch of you coming in at the same time. So essentially this financial aid offer used to be called a financial aid award letter. It will tell you any scholarships that have been awarded to you so far that at that time. Scholarships can change during the year though. It'll talk about the federal loans that we are going to set you up with. We actually originate the loans for you, so you don't have to do that yourself. All we ask is that you complete your documentation, and I will send you information on the documentation. Your initial financial aid award letter probably won't have any federal work study on it because most of our students don't get hired for their federal work study jobs until the first day of class. And then it's a big old whirlwind. When you get your financial aid offers, compare your offers, but remember, not everybody's the same. Not all schools have the same kind of information on their financial aid award letters. Look at your specific information and make sure that what's being offered, compare apples to apples. Sometimes students will find that they're offered one thing at one school and not as much at another school. Well, that's where your negotiation skills come in. You want to contact the admissions office and talk to them. As far as your federal loans go there, though, those are under your control at Southwestern. If you want more in federal loans or less in federal loans, it's a quick email to me. It's very easy to take care of. So graduate loans. There are two kinds of graduate loans for law students. One's called unsubsidized, and the second kind of loan is called a Grad Plus loan. The unsubsidized loan is limited to $20,500 per year, has about a 1% origination fee. That means for every $100 you borrow, you have about a 1% fee that goes back to Congress, not to the school. And a 6%, just over 6% interest as of right now. It is limited to $138,500 for your lifetime, and most students don't come anywhere near that unless you went to grad school and went kind of wild. Grad Plus loans, though, those are also offered in grad school or in law school. 4% loan fee, just over, and a 7.08% interest on the loans themselves. And those loans are not limited as much as the unsubsidized loans, in that you can borrow up to your cost of attendance. We'll go over cost of attendance in just a second. They are subject to your credit, though, so you need to keep your credit clean. Or you might have to get yourself an endorser if you cannot qualify for the loan on its own. Endorsers are not hard to get. You just need to have someone in your life who really, believes in you, that will endorse the loan. Appeals are also possible. The loan itself and the credit that is required to get the loans are not necessarily tied to your credit score. It's more how well do you pay the bills that you currently have. Private loans typically require a co-signer for a student. We will endorse those loans. The private lenders do send us a online questionnaire, and of course we'll turn that around very quickly if that's what you choose to do. So interest rates change on July 1st and origination fees change on October 1st. I do anticipate, given the current economic situation, that the interest rates will go down on July 1st. So for those of you starting in August, the interest rate will probably significantly change, and I do suspect it will go down. Accepting the loans at studentaid.gov. Once we originate the loans for you, then you go back to studentaid.gov and you do two things. For each loan you're requesting, and typically students request two, one unsub and one grad plus, you sign a master promissory note, and you also complete something called entrance counseling. Entrance counseling is a tutorial on how loans work. Very simple to do. I'll walk you through it. If I don't see that it's all done, you'll hear from me. Just if you have any questions, I'm right there. Just shoot me back an email. I usually write them back very, very quickly. But I don't think it's a wise idea to complete your documentation on your loans until probably May, only because you're going to have to do this every year, and I'd hate to have you do it too early in the year and not be able to get loans later in the year if you need them. Now, I'm going to throw around this term cost of attendance a number of times. Cost of attendance is the total cost of coming to school. And that would include your tuition, your housing, food, stuff you need to buy just for, personal items, transportation, books, the whole thing. So most students are eligible to take loans up to their cost of attendance. For my average student living off campus, it's about $88,000 to go to law school for your first year. That includes everything here: tuition, housing, food, stuff, books, transportation, everything that you might need. Some students don't require nearly that much. Some students only want to borrow enough for tuition. Some don't need any loans whatsoever. Some have scholarships that take care of the needs that they have, and they're able to pay the rest of it. It's really up to you and your circumstances. Every student has their own set of circumstances, and I don't expect that we just don't treat everybody the same. Everybody has their own different things that they have to go through. So budgeting. One very important thing that we use a lot: if you live like a lawyer while you're in school, you're going to live like a student when you graduate. And I definitely see this once in a while, students who live the high life, quite frankly, because they just can't figure out how to budget their funds. Best thing you can do is create a monthly budget and stick to it. Budgets are not a bad thing, and I'm more than happy to sit down with you and set up a budget with you and help you and give you lots of pointers on how to make that budget work for you. One thing that I've seen, I'm hoping that this next animation works. Pay yourself each month. One of the things that I see students do is they'll take their financial aid refund check. So when your financial aid comes in, it pays whatever's due the school, and then we send you a refund. Now, if you take that refund and put it in your checking household account, and then you go to the ATM machine with your best friend as you're going out for the evening, and that ATM machine tells you you've got $10,000 in the bank, it's really hard to budget when you've got that much money looking at you in that ATM screen. So a better way of taking care of your budgets is to take the money that you get from the federal loans that you've requested and put that money in a second account, like a savings account. And then take from that savings account and pay yourself like you would a job. Maybe you'll pay yourself on the 1st of each month, or maybe you'll pay yourself on the 1st and the 15th of each month, but you set it aside to make sure that you pay yourself exactly how much you need each time. That will allow you to budget a little bit better because you'll have a finite amount of money each time, so that you're not going to go out and spend a whole bunch of money at the beginning of the term and find that you run out of money at the end of the term. Stay current on your bills. I have had students decide in their first year to stop paying their credit cards that they accumulated during undergraduate, only to find in their second year they no longer qualify for loans. So stay current. You need to stay current. If you find yourself in trouble, that's where you need to make an appointment with me, because a lot of times I can help. Going on to the next one. Be responsible. Typical example of being responsible. A computer that you might need to purchase to come to law school might be a $300, $400, maybe a $500 computer, not a $3,200 Apple, because it's cool. Be smart. Be smart about what you're spending your money on. Learn to cook. By all means, learn to cook. If you can lower the cost of your food by learning to cook. And I'm not saying be crazy and spend hours every day, but for heaven's sakes, learn to cook the basics so that you're not spending money and Grubhubbing it every night and having people deliver your food. I do see students do that. They run out of money very, very quickly. And then drop the extras. Sometimes students just go a little bit wild on all the extras. It's just not necessary when you're in school. That quick latte before you start class every day can get incredibly expensive. $5 a day, 5 days a week. By the time you're all done with all this wonderful enjoying your latte every day, the cost gets pretty ridiculous. And you're paying interest on those funds that you've used for those fabulous lattes. You know, a coffee machine might cost you $100. You can set it every night before you go to sleep. It wakes you up in the morning with that wonderful cup of coffee, and it costs 1/10 of what your latte at Starbucks might cost. So total interest, and then your payments once you finish school, just on those lattes that you enjoyed, are about $45 a month. Crazy. A lot of crazy money. Federal loan repayment, that's the next thing we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and stop here for just a moment and answer any questions that might have popped up.
Thanks, Suzanne. That's a lot of really useful information. And even for those of you who are not able to take advantage of federal loans, all of that information about budgeting, whatever type of aid you do end up getting, that really applies to everyone, regardless of the kinds of aid that you're taking out or receiving to go to law school. We have a couple questions. One, I'm not sure if you can address, but I'll ask it just in case. Do law school students qualify for CalFresh?
Yes, I have quite a few students who have done so.
Okay, great. And for those of you who are not California residents, that is a public benefit program available to people who qualify. So it sounds like law students in at least some cases may. If you have, I think this just generally goes to credit overall, but if you have a Chapter 7 bankruptcy filing in your record or otherwise very poor credit, how does that affect loan approval? I think you touched on this briefly. If you have anything else to add, Suzanne.
I've had students who've had a recent bankruptcy. As long as you did not try to discharge your federal loans, federal government won't have a problem with it. You will not qualify for a Grad Plus loan if you have a recent, anytime in the last 5 years, bankruptcy. But with an endorser, you should still be able to get the loans. The only time that they're going to deny you an unsubsidized loan is if you have defaulted on a unsubsidized loan and have not rehabilitated it. Now is the time to take care of that if that is the case. I do have students who contact me at this time of year, and by August, we're good to go.
Great. We have a couple questions coming in through the chat. So if possible, please send them through the question and answer function of the webinar, but I will get to these in the chat. We have one saying, one is asking if the federal loans are offered by FAFSA or the law school. I think if you could just address, Suzanne, kind of the distinction of where this money is actually coming from.
Okay, so we're a federally funded school in that we qualify for federal aid because we're accredited and the feds like us. So we are able to obtain these federal loans for our students through the FAFSA, and then that money is sent to the school, and whatever the school does not need for your tuition, that money then just cycles right to you in a check or an automatic deposit from school. So the loans themselves, the money, the lender is the federal government. The school is just the conduit.
And then there will also be the servicers, right?
We'll talk about the servicers in a minute. But when you repay your loans, federal government cannot possibly handle all the millions and millions and millions of students who have federal loans. So they have hired servicers, and I'll talk about those guys in a minute, to take care of that for you. Their services job is to keep the federal government happy and to keep you happy at the same time. So, and we'll work with you there too. We have a lot of very good federal loan servicers. In the past, there might have been one I didn't care for very much, but most of them are very, very, very attentive.
Okay, and can you address what is the effect on your eligibility for federal loans in law school if you've already applied for federal loans in the past?
As long as you haven't gotten $138,500 in unsub and subsidized loans, which would be highly unlikely if you just finished an undergraduate program, then you're qualifying for those loans. As long as you are, once you have gone 9 months without paying on the loans, even though they've been asking you to pay for 9 months, that's called default. At that point, the feds don't want to loan you any more money until you fix it. But it's not a problem. They're not looking at your total loans to determine whether or not they're going to let you borrow more. But we can look on that. I mean, just shoot me an email. I can take a look at your loans. I can tell you where you're at, how much you can still borrow. That's what I'm here for. My whole purpose in life at Southwestern is to talk with students and to walk you through the program. So when you get my email at the end, it's really simple. Then just email me. That's what I love doing. So.
Great.
We'll just one-on-one.
Sure. So a couple more questions before we move on with the presentation. When does entrance counseling take place and the signing of the master promissory notes?
That kind of changed. In the past, I would have already sent those of you who have gotten your award letter instructions on how to take care of the master promissory note and the entrance counseling. But the federal government has just changed the rules this year, and those rules have not yet started. I think they're going to start probably by May. And so what their new rule is, they're going to want you to do a new NPN every single time you get a loan. And that new NPN would have to be redone at least once a year. So it is best to wait a little while before you do your entrance counseling and your master promissory note. The entrance counseling at student loans or at studentaid.gov, honestly, you could possibly do it now, but just relax. I'll send you the instructions when that time comes. It's not a problem.
Okay, and we have a good question here about outside scholarships. If you receive an outside scholarship, and you may want to address what exactly that is. So if you receive one of those payable directly to Southwestern, will that amount be added to any scholarships you receive from Southwestern, or will it be deducted?
Added. No, we won't take away a external scholarship from you. So let's say we've offered you $40,000 in a scholarship, and then you get another $5,000 from some organization. Now you have $45,000 in scholarships. Okay. The one thing though, we will not allow you to get scholarships in excess of your tuition. So
Right.
that's the only time that another scholarship coming in might lower the amount of scholarship that you get from Southwestern. That's the only time. Only because it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the students. So we cap all scholarships totals to tuition for the year.
Okay. And then just checking to see if there anything else to address at this point. Is there anything different that part-time students should be thinking of when they are receiving their FAFSA type aid?
No, and that's another unusual thing at Southwestern. We we live and breathe and we work here in Los Angeles. We know how expensive it is. A lot of schools discount the amount of living expenses a student could expect to receive for their part-time students. We don't do that here. So certainly you won't have to borrow as much per year because you're not going to be paying as high tuition if you're a part-time student. But the living expenses, whether you're a full-time or a part-time student, we do find are about the same.
Okay, a couple more. Do federal loan rates vary based on your credit, cash flow, net worth, or anything similar to that?
Nope, they're determined by Congress based on the T-bill that comes out the second week of May. We'll know by May 12th what the new interest rate will be on July 1st. It is not negotiable for anyone.
Okay, let's see. And when do you have to start paying these loans back? Do you have to start paying while in law school, or how much time are we allowed after graduation? And is it a percentage of income? So I think you're going to be getting into repayment in this next portion.
That's my next thing. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Anything else?
I think that'll be a good segue. We have a couple questions asking about whether or not receiving FAFSA loans in undergrad disqualifies you at this point, and I believe you've addressed that. The answer was no.
Correct.
Right. Okay. I think we're ready to move on then. Thank you all for your questions. Keep them coming, and we will address what we can in the scope of this webinar.
Okay, so this next one, federal loan repayment. Oh, that's the hard part, isn't it? But no, it's not as hard as you think it is. So first of all, the loans that you've attained in law school or graduate school will begin repayment 6 months after you graduate. Essentially, most of my students who will be graduating in May, their first payment is due in December. Now that payment might be zero, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But so the only loans that will enter repayment at graduation are your undergraduate loans that had already entered repayment at some point. But in your exit counseling with me, and believe me, you get to sit down with me and we talk about it, I tell you what you can do to make that go away. So not really a big deal. So undergraduate loans, some of them do enter repayment at graduation, some enter 6 months after graduation, but in pretty much every case, we can make it so that all of your loans enter repayment 6 months after graduation. You're going to want to watch for letters and emails from your loan servicer. Now, loan servicers, they come under a number of different names: FedLoan, Navient, Nelnet, Great Lakes. Those were the first 4 loan servicers they had, and since then they've added 5 more: Osla, Cornerstone, Mohila, Ed Financial, and BSAC. Those first 4, the FedLoan, Navient, Nelnet, Great Lakes, those, they're really big, huge. Nelnet actually just purchased Great Lakes, and they don't waste your time. They pretty much everything's automated for those guys. Those other 5, those are much smaller companies. They're a little bit more hands-on. They're more likely to bug you a little bit more, which is fine. Sorry, you cannot choose your loan servicer. It's chosen for you. The proverbial virtual hat is used. They're all good loan servicers. If you ever have a problem with your loan servicer, I am a resource, as is Ombudsman for the federal loan, federal student aid. They're very, very attentive. They don't want these guys messing with you. They want you to be happy as a loanee as well. So these are good people. very, very few problems. And when I have had a problem, we've always had the Department of Ed step in on your side. So not a problem at all. So those guys are who you're probably going to talk to when it comes to your repayments. The repayment itself, here it's coming in, give me a second, here we go. So all federal loans post 2010 are subject to income-driven repayment, or IDRs, income-driven repayment. Federal government loves acronyms. And public service loan forgiveness, also known as PSLF. These two loans that we do offer, the Unsub and the Grad Plus, all of the loans that we offer at this point are subject to all programs, so no problem at all. There are some old programs, one called a Perkins loan and one called FFEL loans for those of you who are coming after many years out of school. A little bit of effort is needed to make these two loans work for you, but I'm here for you. I'll help you make those loans work. The one kind of loan I cannot make work with the rest of these loans are private loans. But if you do have private loans, it would be a really good time to make an appointment with me so we can discuss what you can do to make those less of a burden on you. So we'll take care of that. We'll help you out however you need help. But if you have private loans coming out of undergraduate, come and see me. It's a good idea. We can make your life a little easier. Private loans cannot be consolidated into federal loans. That's an important thing that you must understand. So when you do graduate, if you've got private loans from your undergraduate program or a previous grad program, those payments will not be part of your federal loan payment. All students qualify for at least one income-driven repayment plan. Since 2015, that has been the case. We'll talk about those in a second. Payments are based, well, darn it, payments are based on your income. And we will help you set up an income-driven repayment plan when you do graduate. That's not a problem. That big old scam picture there, there are a lot of bad characters out there. Be very careful. I have had so many students call me after getting involved with one of these companies that promise you the world. Things like, oh, we'll consolidate your loans and we'll make it beautiful and you won't have to make any payments. They're lying to you. Or they're trying to sell you something that you can do for free. So be careful. Watch out for some of those guys. And they sound like your best friend on the phone. It's like, hi, this is Julie. You need to call me back by the end of the day. So be proactive. We will, one thing that I heard way too many times is, well, my friend's in the IBR, and so I try to get into the IBR, and so that's what I'm doing right now. And what I do find is often when you listen to your friends and take their advice rather than your servicor or even myself, you end up in the wrong program, and that can get very expensive for you. Lovely. So watch for scams. Again, sorry for the weird animation. It's not working the way it should. Repayment plans. So at the beginning, the kinds of repayment plans that were out there were, first of all, standard. Now, the standard repayment plan is the default payment plan. All student loans automatically enter the standard repayment plan upon repayment entry. All right. But what we'll do with you when you graduate is put you in a better program. There are 3 repayment plans called the extended, the graduated, and the graduated extended program repayment plans that no law student should ever go into. So hopefully my little circles will come through those. So a standard repayment plan, it's just a standard 10-year repayment plan. So if you've got, well, we'll talk about the different payments. So I don't recommend any students entering the extended or the graduated extended plans. There are 5 different income-driven repayment plans. The first one they came up with was the income contingent plan. And that one said you had to pay 20% of your discretionary income for 25 years. Then they came up with one called IBR, or income-based repayment. That one entered in 2009, and it was a good plan, but it was asking for 15% of your discretionary income for 25 years. Third plan, they came up with something called the new IBR, but it took so bloody long for it to implement that they came up with a pay-as-you-earn plan 2 years earlier. Both of them are the same, 10% of your discretionary income for 20 years. I'd say 90% of our students enter the pay-as-you-earn plan. The new IBR plan, I think I've had 2 students this year that I put in a new IBR only because they had loans that made it so they were not eligible for the pay-as-you-earn plan. In 2016, we came up with another new plan called the Repay plan, which is pretty much a revised pay-as-you-earn plan. It's for all the rest of us who didn't qualify for these first 4 plans. Revised pay-as-you-earn, an additional 5 years, so it's 25 years before the loan would forgive. All of these are forgiveness plans. All of these, after a certain amount of time, will forgive your loan balance if it's not paid within that certain amount of time, anywhere from 20 to 25 years. And that's in private practice, not public service. We'll talk about public service in a few minutes. So if you go, you have $250,000 in loans when you exit law school and you enter the pay-as-you-earn plan, your payments will be based on your income, not on the loan balance itself. Now, how much have you borrowed? Here's a little chart that I came up with that can show you what the different payment plans would mean as far as payments themselves. So let's say you just borrowed enough to cover your tuition, about $155,000. Over the course of the time that you're here, those loans might have accumulated about 21% or 21,000 in interest. So you walk out of law school with about 176,000 in debt. The payments will be anywhere from $0 per month if you aren't working, to all the way up to about $2,000 per month on loans that size, depending on which payment size or which payment plan you enter. Again, that's part of our exit counseling. We don't just throw you on a website and say, okay, complete your exit counseling. We sit down with you, we look at all the numbers, and we look at all the different payment plans, and I'll show you which ones you qualify for and how to get into those plans. So currently, like I said, most of my students enter one of those payment plans on the bottom that is a 10% discretionary income payment. And the payments do not start until December. Payment could be as low as $0 per month in December if you're not working. And they only start a real payment on those loans when you start working. And we'll walk you through that whole process. Very easy to do. So next slide, please. Ta-da! So income-driven repayment plans, are they too good to be true? No, I don't think so, but I do see some mistakes that people make. The first mistake that I see is that students don't always do the repayment setup like they're supposed to. I'll give you a timeline. I'm going to tell you exactly what day, what to do, who to call, where to go, what to click, the whole thing, but some students don't pay attention. And they think that if they forget about their loans, they'll go away, and that's just not true. Every year, after you enter your repayment plan, you have to recertify into that repayment plan. Every single year, you link your most current tax return to this application. That way you stay in that income-driven repayment plan and your payments stay good. It's right on ATM, I'm not sure what that means. So you want to recertify every year. Failure to enter, to set up your automatic payments and miss a payment. You don't want to miss payments because otherwise that payment won't count towards your forgiveness. You want to make sure that you stay current with your loan service provider to make sure that they are aware of where you are and what you're doing. Now, the Public Service Forgiveness Program, it's gotten a lot of bad press lately, but I want to assure you that you are eligible for public service loan forgiveness if you're in a job that is eligible for public service loan forgiveness. It's important that you're in the correct loan repayment plan. And for any student that we know is going to be in public service, we make sure that they're in the correct plan. It is important that you set up the repayments properly, that you turn in the correct paperwork. But again, we are always just a phone call away. Last of all is your investment in law school and the loans that you have to take. Are they worth it? I think so, absolutely. The last screen I want to show you is the different loan email addresses and websites that might be of value to you. First of all, studentaid.gov is a good place to go. If you Google the Road to Zero or Access Lex, you can find some more information on the repayment plans. And my email address, skunz@swlaw.edu, is a great place to just shoot me an email. I'll point you in the right direction if there's any questions that I can't answer. And of course, the FinAid website email address is also available to you, though you will get an immediate answer if you email me directly. Okay, all done.
Great. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for all of that really useful information. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left. I will try to breeze through as many of these questions that we have. We also have some questions that people sent in ahead of time. So thank you for that. We'll be getting to those as quickly as possible. We'll be able to stay on a few extra minutes beyond 12 p.m. Pacific as well. So if you have to go, please feel free to go, but we will try to address what we can while we're here. But just before we do those questions, I just want to do a quick poll of the people who are here. If you're participating via computer, let us know when you are planning to start law school. I'll just leave this up for maybe 15 seconds, so get your responses in pronto. Looks like we have a few admitted students here. Most people are looking to apply and start for this fall, or they've already applied, so that's good. About even with admitted at this point. It's pretty fun to watch. And then we have some people thinking about 2021 and 2022, but no one for beyond. So it's definitely good to start thinking about all of these considerations now. It's never too early. I'm sure Suzanne would agree. So moving on to the questions, we have a couple questions about servicers. One person asks, which is the best? I don't know if you'll be able to really answer that, but is there an option to choose from among them? I believe you said no, but if you have more to add, please do. And then if you have a loan servicer already from undergraduate loans, will you be able to keep that servicer?
Yes, well, they make every effort to keep the same loan servicer that you have in undergrad. It didn't used to be the case. I've had students with up to 5 different loan servicers, but those were students from loans way back in the aughts. So yes, you should be able to keep your same loan servicer. No, you cannot choose your loan servicer, with one exception. If you do decide to consolidate, and in some cases I do tell students that's an okay idea, and other times I say do not do that. It depends. Every student's different. If you do choose to consolidate, at that point you can choose loan servicers. Or let's say you're married to someone who's with Navient and you're with Fed Loan Servicing, and you kind of want both of you to be at the same time. I'm sure that can be worked out. And then last of all, if you switch to public service loan forgiveness, you will be switched to Fed Loan Servicing. They are the only servicer that takes care of public service loan forgiveness.
Okay, and then the last question, can you pay off federal loans early, or are you locked into a schedule?
Never. They love having your money early. So there's no prepayment penalty. You'll save money by paying it off faster.
So that's fantastic. I think we've actually covered all of the questions within the scope of the hour. I have some questions that I'd like to address that we've received about scholarships. So if you've been with us this whole time, you'll have noticed most of this is about loans and that kind of aid. I'm sure many people are interested as much as possible in reducing the amount of loans that they have to take out, and therefore that's where scholarships come in. And just to address some of these concerns quickly, it's a little bit beyond the scope of this particular webinar, but just because it's related and we got some questions, here I go. At Southwestern, merit-based scholarships, we do not offer need-based scholarships for entering students, but for entering students, merit-based scholarships are available. The admissions office, the office that I work for, handles those. Most things primarily go through our Dean of Admissions, but I also to an extent help administrate and can answer many questions. So if you do have others beyond what I address now, please feel free to reach out. We'll get you into contact with the right people. Someone had asked, does Southwestern offer merit-based aid? Yes, those are the scholarship programs. On our website, under the financial aid portion, you are able to see the different kinds of merit-based aid that are there in really great detail, along with any sorts of terms and conditions. We generally have, for our renewable scholarships, meaning let's say you have $100,000, you're in a 4-year program, you get $25,000 each year, assuming you maintain a 3.0 GPA. That's generally how those work. We also have first year only scholarships. So in your first year, you'll receive, let's say, $10,000. Beyond that, you would want to be looking for other types of aid. We also have what's called a Dean's Merit Scholarship. This is actually not something that is administered by the admissions office because it is for continuing students, but we like to let people know that it's available. That is based on your performance in law school. So if you're in the top 30% of your class, you will qualify for a prorated, based on your class rank, amount towards your tuition for the next year. Just sort of a brief summary of how that works. And then in terms of eligibility for these scholarships and availability of these scholarships, in general, for purposes of just even obtaining a seat in the class, we recommend that everyone apply as early as possible in the cycle, that they can put together a complete and competitive application. Our application deadline is April 1st. That is a soft deadline, so we will still accept applications beyond that. I know that's coming up now, so I don't want to cause any undue stress, but it's generally advised to apply at least by that deadline, if not earlier, in order to really have the best opportunities for obtaining a seat and obtaining scholarships. We've been making scholarship awards and admission offers since the fall. So as you can imagine, those funds deplete over time. So definitely take advantage of applying as early as you can, again, without rushing through your materials. You still want to submit a strong application. And then let's see, just to make sure I'm not missing anything that came in overnight ahead of time. I think that kind of addresses most of the things that came in overnight. Someone did ask how to find and apply for scholarships. So for Southwestern, our merit-based scholarships are part of the process. So you're automatically considered for those scholarships at the time that you are admitted. And if you are being offered a scholarship, a merit-based scholarship, it will most likely be there in your admission offer. But I know we have some other types of institutional scholarships, and I don't know if Suzanne, you'd like to address that just briefly, and advice that you have for people who are looking for maybe outside scholarships as well.
Well, the external scholarships, there are a couple that are out there, and we'll post them on our screen. But my experience with a lot of those external scholarships is they're actually kind of a marketing tool to get some of the best and brightest students in front of them, and it's not necessarily worth your time and effort. We'll certainly post those ones that we think are worth your time. And we do have students who do get the external scholarships at certain times. Your best bet and your most effective use of your time are the institutional scholarships and getting the best grades that you can to get the merit scholarships. Those are by far the best use of your time. I did see one question about the public service loan forgiveness and the bad rep that they were getting. I want to address that real quick. There were a lot of news reports about how less than 1% of the students who'd actually applied for public service loan forgiveness actually had their loan forgiveness granted by the federal government. That was due to some issues that they had very early on in the program. I think a lot of those people who were initially denied for public service loan forgiveness are going to be approved in the next year or two. The kinds of loans that were offered in 2008, 9, and 10 were not always eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Also, the kinds of loan repayment plans were not necessarily eligible for public service loan forgiveness. And while it said so in the application, a lot of people didn't turn in an application until the very end when they wanted their loans forgiven. So if you don't read the instruction manual, it's really hard to know if you're doing it right. So that was one of the problems. They did fix that to some degree with some stopgap measures, but The reality is the loans that are offered today are all the right kind of loans. The payment plans that you can enter, I'm going to make sure you're in the right payment plan. If you're interested in public service loan forgiveness, don't worry, you're going to be in a program that will grant public service loan forgiveness at the 10-year period if you do everything you're supposed to. And it's very, very easy to read those instructions and follow them simply. It's not that big a deal. Maybe not so much in 2008, 9, and 10 though.
Great. So I think that addresses pretty much everything. I just want to, for everyone's benefit, can you, Suzanne, offer your 3 top tips for budgeting? And then that'll be what we'll leave you with after today's financial aid webinar.
One works for me. Ask yourself those 3 questions. Do you want it? Do you need it? And can you afford it? If you can answer all 3 of those questions, and then one other rule that I have, and even though my income is much different than it was for the rest, most of my life, I always sleep on a purchase over $100, always, because in the next morning, a lot of times you're thinking about it and you realize, yeah, I didn't really need that after all. So sleep on your purchases of over $100 and ask yourself those questions honestly, ask them honestly, and you'll find that you don't spend nearly as much money.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the fantastic presentation. Thank you to everyone who participated, sending in your questions. If you think of anything afterwards, as I mentioned at the start, we'll be sending a follow-up email with information on how to access the recording, and you can email us back with anything that we didn't get to or that you think of afterwards. So thank you again, and we're going to be closing the webinar now. So thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of your day.